Hello and happy Thursday, everybody. Josh here with On the Wrong Lead. Another fun episode of On the Wrong Lead Live where, we pick a sequence to take a look at and try and make some money here. Um, you know, we've been pretty hot, I think, on here on the Wrong Lead. We had a nice little hit last week with our boy Andrew giving out a nice little turf pick 3. We ended up, I believe, Caleb got a ton of credit for calling out a horse that he ended up using, but definitely I don't think he mentioned much on the stream. But everyone just loves Caleb. And then we kind of teamed up to kind of give out a pick 3 yesterday or last week on the Hong Kong show. So we have some big shoes to fill and see if we can keep this hot streak going. And when I think hot, I think of Mark Capitan, who's just got way too many clothes on, and it's winter. I don't know. I couldn't. I'm trying to dummy the people thinking I was going straight to Caleb, and decided to zig.
You had me fooled. I thought you were going straight to Caleb. I mean, when you think hot and you think our show, it's always Caleb, or maybe Raider Dave. If Raider Dave's on here, he's a rather handsome gentleman.
Raider
Dave,
but man.
The man he's living the life. Go Raider Dave. But no, I was not expecting me. It's a little cold here. It's like 50. Northern lights are out, which is really cool. We got a really nice showing. Stuck my head out the window, and before the cloud cover came in, which is pretty cool. Haven't seen them that well and quite a while. But yeah, no, I think yes, I really want to know, how does Caleb get credit for a horse that the two of us were all over? I think actually we were doing our backstage prep show, and I said, Josh, the two of us are going to be on the same horse, and I mentioned the horse, and you looked at it and went, oh, we are on the same horse, and then a couple hours, what it was, the next day, Caleb's randomly getting credit in chat for being on this horse that was the lone speed. That how does this happen? This is just not okay.
Well, when I think of hot, I think of E.H. Taylor small batch. So I got a little E.H. Taylor
That's not
small
hot
batch.
though. No, I mean,
it's
like,
not that hot, but
it's not really hot. I mean, it's pretty smooth. I mean, if you're talking like what was the one that PDT sent me during COVID?
it's probably the barrel proof, the E.H. Taylor
Yeah,
barrel proof.
is he? Yeah, I think that's what. Yeah, I think that's what it was. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was hot. But no, that's good stuff. That's really nice and smooth. I like. Yeah, that's good stuff.
All right, Caleb, we're tagging you in now. We're done playing around with you over there. How you doing, Caleb?
Doing okay. Hanging in there.
Yeah, it looks like you switched spots.
Yeah, I decided to sit at the other end of the table, and maybe it'll creak less. So far, I think it's working.
There you go.
And I also got tired of looking at Adele and Marcus Mumford on my back wall.
Yeah, I would say, the wall art is much better on this end of the whatever the end of the room you're sitting on. So,
how you doing, man? How is everything in house hunting world?
Annoying as always.
Oh no.
Still under contract with the house, so at least that's promising. Had a few things come up on the inspection. Nothing that I assumed would be a huge deal, but the sellers are just really being assholes about everything. So not responding, not really even like answering like text from my agent and stuff. So I don't know what their deal is. So that's been tomorrow's the deadline to reach an agreement, and they haven't even like responded yet. So we'll see where it goes. But wow. Like I said, there's nothing crazy dramatic in the inspection. So hopefully they're just irresponsible, but we'll see what happens.
is this the one that sounded like they maybe wanted to go back to being a B&B? Are they just
that's
thinking that are they just dragging their feet and they would rather turn it into a B&B than sell it? Which is
their whole process with this makes no sense as far as how they've handled it. So it's real estate
Sucks,
sucks. Interest rates have gone up, so life sucks right now. But it's okay.
Yeah, the real estate market is hot garbage. It's not just out there; it's literally everywhere. It's an absolute shit show. So.
Yeah, and then luckily, Caleb, you're no longer in college, so you have to go back in the office and actually do work and stuff like that.
Dude,
and,
I've been so busy with work lately. Like I forgot what it's like to be like busy from like 8 to 5. Like that's just so rough.
Yeah, I mentioned this on the Hong Kong stream last week, but I was in training for 4 days 2 weeks ago. Last week I went into the office 4 days in a row, and I'm just like, how did we used to do this? Every single day. But like I said, working in IT, we're able to do, I'm able to do a lot of stuff remote. So, obviously we live a charmed life, but. Speaking of charmed life, these small boutique meets tend to live a pretty charmed life because it gets everyone's attention. Keeneland shows up for a month, twice a year, and I tend to play a lot of it, even though, well, I don't want to say I'm never successful there because my biggest hit of my entire life came at a Keeneland Pick 6 carryover. So. Hitting that for 14,000 3 years ago. But
that was more than the Saratoga one, or than the
the Belmont
Derby
one was,
undercard one.
The Derby undercard was 8, and
Okay.
then or 6, and then the Belmont pick 5 I hit was 12, and then I think the opening day pick 6 I hit, or not opening day, but it was the day that me and Caleb showed up on track that one day.
Mhm.
That was like, I think 2,800 or something. It wasn't real big,
Oh,
but I
I thought that was
remember.
a lot more than that.
But I remember it basically paid for my entire trip. I think I paid for dinner for the group of us.
Yeah,
once.
you bought me dinner, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
look at this.
Caleb's
This is
buddy
great.
got lost, just jumping from bar to bar, and ended up having to walk
You
back.
said
to the
Oh, that was that
pub.
one.
walking
Yeah.
back to the Gideon.
You
or
remember
something?
that?
Oh my god.
Yeah, I
Oh,
remember that.
man. Yeah, but Keeneland's fun. I love going to Keeneland. Keeneland's always a good time. I don't know if I'd ever go to a Breeders' Cup again at Keeneland, or if I did, it would just be GA. But we figured, hey, let's cover the pick 6. Not necessarily, I'm probably not playing the pick 6. The $1 minimum makes tickets pretty expensive for me. But what it
What
does
happens if
include,
tomorrow carries?
I mean,
You
okay,
might.
yeah, exactly. Okay, I could be convinced into playing the pick 6. However, the main reason I kind of wanted to include race 5 into a normal pick 5 discussion is because it starts the Keeneland Turf Pick 3, which I do like to play. And sometimes I don't even play the late pick 5. I just play the Turf Pick 3. Ticket sizes tend to be about the same, right? If you're a $50 to $75 player, which I think a lot of our audience is, they'll toss a ticket in around there. That $3 pick 3 just kind of fits right in there. For between $24 $48 ticket. You can usually come up with something. Maybe you have a thinner ticket. You got a couple presses and stuff. I think it's a great bet. I think it's fun. I like the higher base, smaller wagers, like the $5 double that Santa Anita's doing, and their late pick 3 as well, to kind of cover up the golden hour. So figure, hey, let's include it. Last week we got through the stuff in record time, so I'm sure because I added one whole race, it's just gonna completely just screw up our timing here. But race 5 is a 1.16 on the turf, 100K maiden, 2-year-olds here, and we got a full field of 12. We're oversubscribed by 1, so we got an AE and a 13. Your morning line favorite is the 4 Lucky Mischief. You get 7-2 on Blue Chair Boy, and then you kind of get like everybody else. You can kind of get a flat board after that, 6-1, 8-1. Johnny's Rendezvous, not to be convinced or not to be mistaken for Johnny Unleashed, who, if he was running, I'm sure Caleb and I would be losing all our money to.
I thought it was when I first read the name.
But yeah, I think we start off with a pretty good betting race, and I don't know about you guys, but when I looked at the horses that had starts, I wasn't very impressed. I didn't really like a lot of the horses that had starts in here, so I basically used 3 first-time starters in this race, and probably my top pick is gonna be Probably the 9 El Muhit here for Brendan Walsh and Tyler Gaffleone. Warfront, 14% first time starters. You got See the Stars on the bottom, another win early type pedigree. Brendan Walsh does okay with first time starters. I mean, he's a little bit off with his average, but he's not not terrible, and he does even better with turf first time starters. So um, I thought he kind of made a lot of sense in here when I kind of didn't like a lot of the other horses that had starts. The 5 Blue Chair Bay, was pretty well bet. 6-1 first time at Kentucky Downs. Those Kentucky Downs races tend to take a lot of the horses. I don't know if I'm really, all that keen to have a second time starter coming from there. It is Brad Cox and Flo Giroux, so it's going to take a ton of money. I think you get around that horse and get around the 4 Lucky Mischief, who's another horse that's kind of coming in off of Kentucky Downs. I think you're going to get a pretty big price. So yeah, I landed on the 9 El Muhit as my top pick. Kind of going through more kind of just like turf pedigrees. I mean, the 8 My Father's Place I thought was interesting that Irad gets aboard here for Rusty Arnold, who always points to this meet as one of our good friends likes to say. And obviously English Channel, route turf influence. We're going mile 16th here. Maybe a little question mark because it's violence on the bottom, so I don't know if distance might be an issue here. But work pattern looks okay, Rusty Arnold's not exactly known for first time starters, but I think you're getting a price on the morning line of 15-1. So I thought he was a little bit interesting from kind of a pedigree type play. And then a 20-1 horse, the 3 Love That Symphony here for Vicky Oliver and John Velasquez. Johnny V doesn't necessarily ride for Vicky all that much. Johnny
But
V, huh?
they had a $20 winner on the card today,
Yeah.
and the only other Vicky Oliver winner, which was earlier on the meet, was a big price with Johnny V up on it as well. So he is clearly getting all the juicy Vicky Oliver mounts.
Yep.
Just
And there was
throwing it out
another,
there.
there was another, I think there's a horse later in the sequence that I thought was very, very
Yep.
interesting that Johnny V was getting the board for at a big price. So, I didn't like, I didn't like any of the horses with starts. I love that symphony here. Obviously Mendelssohn on top. And Mendelssohn's been off to a really good start as a turf sire. And then you look at the dam stats. You get 2 turf winners from 7 starters. All 7 starters have won. You got a stakes winner in there. Yeah, a lot to like I think here for the 3 Love That Symphony. I'm really, like I said, playing against the horses with starts here. And I know it's kind of tough routing on the turf, but I think the 2 short prices, especially, were ones I was definitely going to try and get away from. I thought the one was a little bit interesting for me, as kind of the speed horse drawn on the inside, but I couldn't get there. I'm taking shots with these other prices, and like I said, if I'm just playing the turf pick 3 and I get knocked out, like. I took a shot here with a couple of prices, but Mark, I'm interested to hear where you landed.
Yeah, you mentioned the 4 Lucky Mischief, and I think the horse, of the horses with starts, and I think to a lot of what you've said, that I agree with you. I think a lot of the horses with starts aren't as interesting, but I think of the ones that do have starts, Lucky Mischief, who I think is probably the morning line favorite, is the most interesting horse coming out of the Kentucky Downs race. We've seen a lot of that Kentucky Downs form translate to horses running back well at Keeneland, and this is a horse that has a pretty big speed figure advantage over the rest of the horses here, and looked in that last start like he just needed a little bit more ground, and he gets a little more ground here. So I don't love him, but I think of the horses with with starts, at least I should say with starts across the surface. I think Lucky Mischief is the most interesting. Other horse that I was really kind of a little bit. It's one of those sort of head scratchy kind of interested horses in here was the 10 horse Authentic Style. You're getting Rudy Brissett horse. Rudy Brissett's had a phenomenal meet. He's 3 for 9, and what is it, 5 of 9 in the money. So his barn has just been absolutely firing so far. And Flavian Pratt sees fit to get aboard this horse that doesn't. I mean, there's a little turf pedigree there. There's not a lot, but Rudy Brissett's not known for his for moving horses to the turf. He's actually abysmally terrible at it. But I thought it really interesting that that Pratt jumps up on this one. At a bit of a price, pretty good workouts. Breeding says he should be okay on turf. It's just one of those. It's a trainer that's not known for this type of a move, and I thought Athletic Style was pretty interesting, especially because Flavian's been riding really well so far this meet. There's a lot of other horses. I know you had mentioned some horses like the one horse who I thought Johnny's Rendezvous, who was interesting. And I think you also mentioned that Vicky Oliver horse, the 3, Love That Symphony, also another interesting horse in here. There's a lot of ways you can go. I think if you're playing this pick 6, or even if you're looking to play a double, or play this turf pick 3. In this turf pick 3, this is the leg that I want the most coverage with. There's a lot of ways to go in here. Interested to see how Caleb saw it.
Yeah, I think kind of as usual, I sort of fall in between you and Josh, Mark. So, I think that, to start with the favorite here, the 4, I mean, I don't think he's anything special, but I think he's fine. Lucky Mischief is improved in all 3 starts, just missed last time out at Kentucky Downs. I don't think this is a particularly difficult race. So, yeah, I mean, 5 or 2 doesn't feel like a good price because he's by no means does he blow you away or he's not real flashy or anything. But, I mean, he probably should be your favorite given the body of work and the lack of any crazy live first-time starters. With that being said, though, I do kind of agree with Josh in the sense that there's no one in here, even including the 4, but especially, sort of beyond the 4, that I think it's hard to fall in love with anybody. I did respect the 9. El Muhit is probably the first-time starter that I had the most interest in. But there was one other horse in here that I guess I'm going to talk a little bit about, and it is a horse with 1 start, and that is the number 6, Maui Strong. So this is a horse that, I kind of looked at for a while and I wasn't really sure what to think of him, but going back and kind of watching that replay, he kind of looked like a horse that just needed a race. Dale Romans is not good with first-time starters, but he's actually quite good with second-time starters. His win percentage doesn't exactly scream off the page, but he's quite profitable and tends to get home pretty big prices when they do win second time out. Also, looking at the pedigree for this horse, it just seems like one that really wants to go longer. 5.5 furlongs for a Kitten's Joy over a Giant's Causeway Dam just doesn't seem like that's ever going to be the right trip. So this seems to be a trip that he's much more appropriately bred for. I like the fact that he flashed speed going 5.5 in a race that doesn't really seem like it has much speed in it. I do hope that Vinny gives Maui Strong a somewhat forward ride in here. And yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of looking for, one of those outsiders. I think we're all kind of approaching this race the same way, trying to find angles for horses who are in that 10-1 range because, a lot of the other short prices, namely, Blue Chair Bay, the Brad Cox horse, and, a couple of others just don't really do a whole lot for me. I probably respect, Lucky Mischief enough to use them, and then I'll probably be using El Muhit and Maui Strong as well.
So you're going to bet Vinny, really?
Yeah, I mean, he's fine. I mean, he's not fine, but he's fine enough. I mean, he's got 13. He's got like 1 start, so I mean, he's fine. He's better than Jose Gomez.
So our friend Matt, who You've Got to Be Shot to me with, I'd asked him the other day to run a stat query through like his stats database of jockey change off of Vinny to anybody else, thinking like, all right, this has got to be a gold mine. And unfortunately it was not. It was like pretty average. It was like 12% or something like that, 10, like 11, 12%, like nothing actionable, right? Like I think it maybe we could dig deeper into it or like look for specific things, but yeah, I mean, he's fine, right? I mean, he still wins at 15%. I think he's taking less mounts now, so he's or not getting as many mounts. And he's also riding, I think, at different tracks. But yeah, I don't know. I did have another horse written down, which was the 12, and I have no idea how to pronounce this. Takak, I have no idea, but of the horses with starts, I thought this was a little interesting because he ran him at Colonial, obviously routing, and gets Jose Ortiz to ride over at Kentucky Downs, and Jose Ortiz and Nacho Correas. Jose gets a lot of good Nacho mounts, and 22% in the last 2 months, and when you kind of look at the stats for, I mean, Scat Daddy obviously wins very early on the turf on the bottom end. Yoshida hasn't really done well first time out on turf, but he is still producing 12% turf winners. So might be a more of a like win later type pedigree. So this is one that's got two starts. Keeps Jose Ortiz aboard. He ran fine at Kentucky Downs. Ran fifth by 2 lengths. But I don't know. I thought that this is maybe another one that if you're looking for an alternative to try and get a price, I thought the 12 was a little bit interesting, but
Yeah, I have that 12 marked down as a B as well, Josh. And it's really interesting if you look at this is one of those things where, you sometimes get in this game of comparing speed figures. And, obviously Briz has those first two starts being, fairly similar. The second one a touch slower. And BSF agrees very much that those first two starts were pretty similar. Then the second start a touch faster. Timeform, on the other hand, has the second start being an absolutely massive improvement. They have the second start being, 27 points faster than the first start, with it being an 89 in the second. So, what I would imagine happened is that obviously it looks like that horse really closed pretty aggressively late, and Timeform is really inflating that value, and that may be the fact of a horse that's kind of rounding into form, sort of figuring the racing thing out. I thought the horse was interesting. 10-1, super usable. I wouldn't talking anybody off him. But again, kind of to Caleb's point, I don't think there's any sort of superstars in the horses here that have starts. So at the right price, it's a super usable horse, but not a horse that I'm extremely excited to fire away at.
yeah, I mean, I think last time out just kind of fired out of the gate really slow, and I mean, like you don't see a horse be eighth by 11 lengths at the start very often,
Yep.
and then even at first call he was then 14 lengths off of it, and to finish only 2 lengths off. Yeah, I think there's a little bit there. It was also kind of a pretty fast pace. They went 23 and 45 and 4. So you would kind of assume that it would fall apart a little bit. So maybe that's why some of the other places didn't really upgrade it as much, where Timeform maybe was looking more at that closing fraction. But all right, let's move on to race 6 here. We got a 6.5 furlong dirt sprint here. And this starts the pick 5, which is probably where I'll most likely get involved. Well, I mean, not that I'm not going to play the other ones, but I'm, like I said, probably just turf pick 3. I don't think I'll be playing pick 6 unless Mark does his rain dance thing and all of a sudden we get a pick 6 carryover. It's not really a rain dance.
Are you
It's a
implying I'm a
carryover
Rain
dance.
Man? A Rain Man or
I
something?
mean,
Is that what I just got? I mean,
I don't know, but man, I don't know. I'm feeling Caleb-y today. I see a 6-5 favorite in Giant Mischief, and man, I am looking for all kinds of ways to beat this horse. And then I see a 7-2 horse in Cyclone Mischief. I'm looking for all kinds of ways to beat this horse. And you kind of get those two, and then you kind of you have Bromley at 9-2. Shout out to Mark, right? Isn't it the mountain you work at?
that's my home mountain. Yep.
And then Bourbon Heist 6-1, and you kind of get double digits everywhere else. But Mr. Bromley, I'll let you go. Where did you land here?
Yeah, I hope I'm not just hunch betting horses here. But I did end up on Bromley. Bromley was where I landed. Look at this horse. If you get back to some of his form, end of last year, at Churchill, and even his Keeneland races, those are pretty decent races. I think to the point you were trying to make, I think Giants Mischief is super sort of suspect in here. For a number of reasons. Yes, he does have a win across the surface, but it was going further than this. And also, he's run okay. He hasn't run bad, but he hasn't kind of been winning, and he feels like the kind of horse that he's basically run his, I don't know, his last six races have effectively all been the same. So I feel like with Giant Mischief, I know what the ceiling is, and my thought was with Bromley, the Lobo Barn is phenomenal, second off the long layoff. So here's a horse that had those couple of Turfway races, has the long layoff into the fall, has the one start at Churchill, which was not a bad effort. He does need a bit of pace set up in front of him, but I think he kind of gets it here. And the Lobo Barn is 32% off the second off the 180-day layoffs with a $2.36 ROI. So I landed on Bromley, and hopefully I'm not just getting super cute and hunch betting the name of my home ski center.
Caleb, did I do you justice in trying to?
You did. I mean, we are just in lockstep on this one. I don't need any part of Giant Mischief, and I also don't. I don't need anything with Mischief in it. I don't need Giant Mischief. I don't need Cyclone Mischief. I don't need any of the Mischief in this race. So, for me, I mean, yeah, Giant Mischief could win, but he's a massive underlay off a huge layoff. Cyclone Mischief, you just never know what you're going to get out of him, and even his A race, I mean, it makes him a contender, not a standout in here. So I do like Bromley, to Mark's point, to talk about him a little bit. My concern with this horse is really just the pace. Mark said he thinks he gets the pace set up in here. I'm not sure that I see it. I think it's a very murky pace scenario at best. There's not really any true need the leads in this race. So I guess it kind of depends on, for example, like Jose Ortiz on Cavid, or even Giant Mischief maybe on his day had some speed. But the horse that I ended up on is the one I think is most likely to show speed. The cheapest of the variety is the number 6, Lofty Adjudicator. This is a horse who admittedly has beaten up on some inferior competition in his last couple of starts. But I also think if you go back to the race at Keeneland in this past April, he ran second in a race that's probably just about as strong as this. He was in an 11-horse field. He closed and just missed to Safa's Day, who on Safa's Day can be a pretty nice horse. So with that being said, I mean, I just think that this horse gets to control things on the front end. I really hope Loveberry gives an aggressive ride and doesn't try to do something stupid. But there's just not enough speed in this race. So I'm trying to look for horses that I think will be forwardly placed, and he's the one that I'm leaning on that might be somewhat forward. As I mentioned earlier, I do like Bromley, and then the other horse that I'll probably throw in is going to be the number 8, Gold Luck. I know that kind of goes against what I just said about horses that can be somewhat forward, but I also just kind of like a horse that wins. And he's won essentially 4 of his last 6 or 7 starts, has just continued to climb up the class ladder and just continues to be getting better and better. He was 10, he broke 10th last time, but was only 3 lengths off the pace. So it wasn't like he was super far back. And in general, I mean, he's never more than 3 or 4 lengths off. So I'm kind of hoping that he can work out a good trip from the outside here, and I think he'll get a good price for some lower profile connections in here. So yeah, I'll be using the 68 and the 3.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lofty Adjudicator, to kind of your point, I often talk about horses that are camera shy. This is a horse that just really, really, really likes to get his photo taken. The horse is 9-22 lifetime, but if you look at the recent form, won his last 3, and then has a whole bunch of other streaky, where he just wins bunches in a row, and he really likes to win. Again, I realize he's a little bit soft on pace figure or speed figures, but very much to what Caleb said, he's a horse that really likes to win. It's going to be a bit of a price, no connections that are sexy or anything. They're going to take money. So I think he's got a huge shot in here, and is a horse that'll probably get ignored on the board. So
Yeah, I like Lofty Adjudicator, just like everyone else. So honestly, I would have him as kind of like a Stone Cold A. My only concern is, I look back at that Keeneland race, and obviously he closed in that one. You look at the last race, and he kind of sat off, albeit probably a much faster pace than we're going to see in this race. I mean, 22 and 44 and 4 like isn't all that fast for. I mean, it's quick, right? But it's we're not talking about 21 and like 1, 21 and 2, which you'll see in 6 furlong races. So, and he was off it by a length. So I don't know if he's gonna still like be on the lead, or where he's gonna be. I did think, to Caleb's point, this is a very, very murky pace scenario, which made it hard to kind of handicap. But I landed on 3 horses, so obviously the Lofty Adjudicator, and then I landed on the 2 inside horses. The one Kavad, albeit his lone start here at Keeneland is not great. I'm really looking back at some of his races earlier this year at Fairgrounds, and he does have that speed. He's got that tactical speed. He's got that 22 speed, and getting drawn on the rail gets Jose Ortiz aboard. I'm looking at his last race, right? He was out in the 7 post, right? So and they were going 7.5. So now he's drawn a little bit more inside. I think that might help him a little bit get out the gate and maybe get up to the lead, because it did sound like he tried to bid for the lead, but he was kind of floated out 3-4 wide there at the start. So I think you're going to get an aggressive ride from Kavad. So I kind of like Kavad as maybe kind of being able to take this wire to wire. So I'm going to go with Kavad here at 12-1. And then the 2 Bourbon Heist. Obviously, I've been trashing every horse's character that's coming out of Kentucky Downs for the last 2 weeks, but Bourbon Heist absolutely loves Keeneland. He's got 3 starts, he's got 2 wins, and he's got 1 second. And when you look at the speed figure he got for that last 7 furlong race the day after my birthday this year, I mean, that Brisnet speed figure absolutely blows anybody else away in there. I don't know what Timeform or DRF have it at, but I see that figure here at Keeneland. I'm very, very interested at what seems probably going to be your 3rd or 4th choice here, Bourbon Heist. Obviously, I'm betting the 2 Ortiz brothers. So, I mean, one of them's got to win, right? Isn't that how it works, right?
Yeah, it's clearly one of them wins.
I land on the 1 and the 2 is kind of my main picks in this race, and then I'm gonna have a little bit of the 6 Lofty Adjudicator, in case the 1 does not go early.
Yeah, I could see that, Josh. I had the same thought with the 1 Cavid, especially just the inside draw, murky pace scenario. I mean, we've seen Jose Ortiz do this before. I mean, him and Saya is probably 2 of the best at getting a horse out there and just stealing it. So wouldn't surprise me if he gets out there and does it. I don't know that he's quite good enough, but the barn has been hot enough, and the race sets up for a trip like that. So I definitely could see that.
Anything else on this race?
Don't think so.
All right, we got another maiden race here. 6 furlongs for 2-year-old fillies, 100K maiden, and in this one, I guess maybe my inner Caleb has left me as of this one, but your morning line favorite is going to be the 6 Keepsake at 3-1, albeit kind of a lukewarm favorite, 3-1, and I do think you got a bit of a flat morning line in this race here, so I think you can go a couple of different places, but Caleb, I'll let you go first here. Where did you kind of land?
I really didn't have a good feel in this race. I think Keepsake is fine. I mean, he's your favorite. It's Brad Cox, who's having as always, a strong start to the Keeneland meet. Flavian Pratt, I mean, just looking at the Brisnet stats, 69% out of his last 13 starts with Brad Cox. I mean, the connections are right. The pedigree's there. I mean, no real reason to knock this horse other than the fact of how short of a price do you really want in a race that sort of feels like it could be wide open. So with that being said, I mean, there was 2 other first-time starters that I looked at that, I thought would be, worth a glance at a better price in here. And those were the number 8 and 9. So starting with the 8, Mezcal Mule. I've been a big fan of the Army Mule progeny so far. They've been winning pretty early and very precocious, getting 17% debut winners. Cherie DeVoe is another barn that always does quite well at Keeneland. Don't know if she points for it intentionally, but that kind of is her backyard, and she does quite well here. She's already at 38% as of the time the Brisnet form came out, and has a couple of days since then to potentially add a few more. So I like the pedigree here. I mean, she does adequate with first-time starters. I mean, not great, but consistent string of works, win early pedigree, and she gets Jose here. So I think Mezcal Mule was interesting And the other one was Miss Pharaoh, the number 9. This is one I'm hoping to get a better price on, simply because it is Phil Simms and Bejarano are not exactly household names. But this is more of a pedigree and works play than anything else for me. I love the works coming into this race. If you look at what this horse has been doing in the morning, she has been rattling off just bullet after bullet. I mean, just extremely quick works. I mean, 59-3 bullet last out, and then a 46-3 bullet from the gate, 2 back, second to 53. This horse clearly has early speed. Is also coming out of a dam that's been very successful at getting winners. Having 4 winners from 5 starters, and 2 of those winners did win as a 2-year-old. So there is some precocity there. So for me, I mean, I like the pedigree. I like the works. It's a spread race for me for sure. I'm not going to make a strong case for anybody because I feel like I could use at least half the field. But those are the ones I'll start with, and then we can loop back around later to see who else is left that might be worth talking a little about.
Mark?
Yeah, no, Caleb talked about 2 of my 3 top picks in here with Keepsake and Mezcal Mule. And again, all the reasons that Caleb mentioned in here. I didn't have Miss Pharaoh as highly as he did. I did have her kind of as a C. The other horse that I thought was kind of an A was this 12 horse My Little Punky. So far in the Keeneland meet, speed has been very, very good. Raz Morales has to clear this field from the outside post and going, but he has a little bit of room to do it. And I think that's probably what they try to do. Edgar Morales. And, I think this is a horse that, has almost got it done twice. Speed figures are pretty decent for a 2-year-old. He should be, a pretty major, she should be a pretty major player in here. I didn't see anything that I really disliked. Of the ones that have a start, that's one I thought was pretty interesting. And the only other horse that I was a little bit interested in here of the ones that have a start is the one, with just Truth or Consequences for Wayne Catalano. Catalano Barn is notorious for his horses sort of needing a start. Horse had a start at Churchill, and that looked more like a kind of a glorified work than a start with intention. Kind of broke flat-footed, spotted the field, and just kind of on a road around and was never really super involved. The rail post has been really, really good in these dirt races. And you see Rad Ortiz sees fit to jump up on this horse for a barn that is pretty darn good with maiden second timers. They hit about 21% of the time. So I thought at a price the rail horse was pretty interesting. But again, I think this is another race, kind of to Caleb's point. This is a race that you want to have coverage in. This is a race I think you need to be deep in. I think this is a race that really could produce prices. It's a really tough field.
Yeah, I saw it kind of similar to Caleb, where I like the 6 Keepsake. I think obviously just makes a ton of sense, connections wise. Win early, breeding. When Brad Cox wins early, not we're not setting the light, like the handicapping world, on fire by saying we'd like a Brad Cox first or Flavian Pratt aboard out of Into Mischief, right? I'm with you on the 9, Miss Pharaoh. I think all the things that you said, Caleb. Work pattern looks great. Phil Simms, not a household name, and he does just as well with first time starters as he does with any other horse. So it's not like a negative here for he's not necessarily bad with first time. So he wins with just as much with first time starters as he does other horses. So, and in fact, he actually wins a little bit higher at maiden special weight. So. Rafael Bejarano is a fine jockey, 15% guy. Doesn't have a win this meet, but has had kind of limited amounts. But I thought Miss Pharaoh made a ton of sense here, 10-1. I mean, we'll see what price we end up getting. The only other horses, and you guys didn't talk about either of them that I'm using. I have a lone B here in the 2 Contemplate for Owen Hardy and the Axeman Juan Machado. With a lot of first-time starters, this is one I know is going to have speed, is inside drawn. So I always think that inside drawn speed is dangerous. So Yeah, the Briz figure last time out looks fine. If we get a step forward from that race, finished second by a length in that maiden race. So, I took a pretty big step forward, I think, from the Ellis Park debut. So third time up, you're getting 8-1. I thought that this could be a kind of interesting horse here for Owen Hardy and Godolphin. But the other horse, I was a little like, what's going on here? Is another Johnny V horse that we talked a little bit earlier. CB here, the 10 horse, and George Arnold once again. He's not off to the best of starts, but he tends to, like we talked about earlier, he tends to kind of point his horses towards this meet. I see Johnny V getting aboard, and it just makes me think a little bit. The works are fine. We're talking, Radin 48s here. One from the gate, a 48, and one from the gate, and then just kind of two more 48 works, and bit of win early pedigree and street sense on the bottom, but Bernardini is not necessarily all that much. Like you're getting this priced in, right? But I just thought the fact that Johnny V is getting the board here, it might be interesting for a tournament type play, or if you're trying to get something underneath, or like I said, if you just want to spread, I thought the 10 at 20-1 was maybe worth taking a look at. Maybe go back and do a little bit more investigation on the works and see what clockers and others thought about. But most of my play is going to be through the 6 and 9 here. I'll have a little bit of the 2 contemplate, and then maybe I take a little bit of a flyer on the 10 CB here.
Yeah, I do sort of, I agree with you, Josh, on essentially both of those, especially Contemplate, who I like quite a bit. This does strike me as the kind of race where everybody finds a long shot they like, and I like a big flashy first time starter with Brad Cox and Flavian Pratt, or let me go to the Gaffalione Walsh horse, or the Johnny V and Rusty Arnold horse at 20-1, and then you get a very logical horse who has the best form in the race, like Contemplate, to go off at 6 or 8 or 10-1. It feels like that kind of race to me. And then that horse wins, and you're sitting there feeling very dumb when you didn't have him. So I completely agree with you there. Beyond that, there's only one other horse I want to maybe briefly touch on, which would be the number 5 Princess Aaliyah. This horse, I don't know what to think of her necessarily, but somebody thought enough of her to pay $1.2 million to acquire her. It is an Into Mischief. Silver Colors wasn't much on the racetrack, but has been a pretty good broodmare, throwing out a couple of nice winners, in her time. I think the best one was Eskimo Kisses, who was pretty decent at Saratoga for a bit. The works don't really jump off this page. I mean, a little on the slow side, but there is a lot of works on that page. So clearly this horse has foundation. Have to wonder if maybe was the plan to debut her maybe at Saratoga? Did something happen? I'm not really sure, but you get Saez up for D. Wayne Lucas. The horse is coming out of a very productive pedigree, and someone thought very highly of this horse at 10-1 in a race that I'm already spreading pretty deep. She'll probably be like on that B or C line for me for my tickets.
Yeah, I didn't know what to do with her either. She was a real head scratcher for me. I mean, first off, who pays 1.2 mil for a horse and gives it to Dwayne Lucas at this point in his career? But beyond that, yeah, it feels like a horse that you expected to debut at Saratoga and didn't. And from a not high percentage barn, maybe she has a lot of talent. She very well could. I just feel like she's going to be an underlay given that purchase price, and Saez up for Lucas and all the sentimental angles that people tend to bet.
You know what? I think if I bought a horse for 1.2 million, I'd probably give it to D. Wayne Lucas. You want to know why?
Because he's going to run it 30 times in a year.
You're going to actually see the horse run, right? You could be just. I mean, obviously, if you got 1.2 million to buy a horse, you got money to travel. Well, guess what, man? You're going to be at Oak Lawn Park. You're going to be at Churchill Downs. You're going to be everywhere, Saratoga, and you're going to be living it up. And your horse is going to be running every 3 or 4 weeks. Like that's going to happen. So, yeah, Caleb. I listened to another one I looked at. I love. When I'm looking at Brisnet, I love the dam stats, especially on these these maiden horses. And if you're not in a state that doesn't have access to all the ADWs, and I've been banging this drum for a while, like if you could somehow get these PPs to be clickable and be able to get the same stats that you get through the Twin Spires website, it would be just amazing. Like Twin Spires has such a crazy amount of stats when you're clicking through the ADW. I would definitely, if you're somebody who's newer and maybe like I mostly bet through Naira Bets. Shout out to Matthew DeSantis, but when I go through when I load up Twin Spires and I see a maiden race and I click on something, it always just amazes me the amount of data that you can pull for these maiden horses and stuff. So I know Caleb, that's definitely a site that you use to click through. You're able to find the progeny and stuff very very easily. So definitely something to look at. All right, race 8, the Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup. Grade 1, mile in the eighth on the turf, and fillies 3 years old. And I looked at this race, and at first glance, I kind of feel I kind of feel a little like I cheated a little bit because I basically took the €2 and the Chad Brown horse. So I'm kind of like, I don't know if I'm on easy street here and just taking it easy, but I did some work, right? And I think the 10 is more of like a B or C type for me. I will say that last time out finished second by half length to actually a really nice horse in Friendly Soul. So has been running some pretty nice races. Went out next time and won. I will say the second place horse in that race, Berthie, basically ran up the track next time out. If I think finished 12th out of 12 in a race. So you know it's kind of a thing where the horse that finished first, very very good horse, finished 2.5 lengths back. The second place horse I think is probably going on a layoff or something. So kind of hard to figure out what to do there. Mark, I'm sure you have stats on Henri Gaffard over here. Maybe you know anything, but I've literally never seen this man's name in my life, so I'm not entirely sure what how if he's shipped any horses to the U.S.
His numbers are really low. U.S. shippers. I can pull it up 1 sec.
Yeah. So I kind of landed with my top pick being the 5 Soprano here for George Bowie, and I mean you just have to look at the last race, and you see Porta Fortuna in there, finished second, I believe, last year in the juvenile. Is it the juvenile fillies or is it the juvenile turf? Or is it juvenile turf filly turf? Either way, Dino finished second last time out, but won a pretty big race at Ascot. Probably when we were streaming, and we probably didn't have it, Caleb, because we did awful that stream. But it's just another one that has actually been keeping pretty good company. You see Friendly Soul back there, 3 back at Ascot, and yeah, I just think this is kind of a legit 3-year-old, right? Has been keeping good company, has been running against good horses. Obviously, the jock is shipping over. So yeah, I like the 5 Soprano. I'm seeing all the normal well meant Euro signs here. So I thought made a ton of sense, and I'm gonna go. I think of the American horses, the horse I'm most interested in is the 9 Greyosh. You see Flavian Pratt getting aboard for Chad Brown. Obviously won the Lake Placid, and I'm I guess a little confused why Greyosh is 8-1 on the morning line when she beat the morning line favorite last time out, and she feels
'Cause
pretty.
the morning line is garbage. It's absolutely a
Um,
joke in this race. This race is laughable.
yeah, so yeah, I like to. Sometimes I'll handicap these races. I'll pull the earlies up, and I won't have the morning line on. Obviously, with Brisnet, you don't have the customizability like you do with DRF, but Yeah, I wouldn't have made She Feels Pretty the morning line favorite. One thing I'll say, because I believe, is it Nick Tamero that makes it the morning line for Keeneland?
Yes.
Yeah. One
Sounds
thing
right.
I will say about Nick, I think that at least the way I kind of see it a little bit, and I think he kind of puts his handicapping a little bit into the morning line, for better or worse. Like I we've talked about morning lines, and they're just a number, and you got to do your own candy cap, and got to make your own value lines, that kind of stuff. But so I'm curious, if anyone likes She Feels Pretty, because I kind of I don't know, just kind of not for me. I feel like once they kind of stretched it out past the mile, and I know we're only going an extra furlong, but the mile and 3/16 and the mile 16th seemed to kind of be just a little short, right? And came up, um, just kind of came up short in both those races. I mean, so albeit it's a good horse. I mean, I think Grash is a pretty decent horse. Cinderella's Dream, obviously another good horse, and so it's not like in defeat she's kind of like embarrassed herself or anything, but I just think I don't know. I don't agree with making She Feels Pretty more. And in fact, I'm not going to have She Feels Pretty anywhere. So um, whether or not we get a little bit of value because of that, I think the computers and the public will probably make all this much more efficient. Unfortunately for us, but yeah, I landed on the €2, the 5 Soprano, the 10 Candala, and then the 9 Grayosh here for Chad Brown. Mark, where did you land?
Yeah, I know Josh had mentioned Porta Fortuna. So Porta Fortuna finished second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. Her last three races were she won the Coronation, she won the Falmouth, and she won the Matron.
Mm-hmm.
She is entered in the Filly and Mare Turf and the Mile. She's going to be short wherever she lands in either one of those two. I thought this race was absolutely laughable because I think you just single Soprano and you move on. I think Soprano absolutely towers over this field. Normally when you see these Euros and you see European time form figs, you know, Soprano's last European the time form that came over was a 112, and normally there's some sort of correction because just due to pace dynamics, those races tend to come back a little soft on the figures. I realize it's not like you're converting European time form to U.S. time form, but they still do tend to come back a little light. And horses that are coming first start in the United States, normally their time form figures improve. So you're okay with the horse is 5 or 7 points too slow on those figures. You expect them to kind of run that fig. That 112 is right there with the best in this field. The only exception to that being She Feels Pretty, who has that 122 she ran in the Hilltop. That's the only figure in here that jumps off the page, and she 2 times in a row has not been able to back that up. I think Soprano, when you look at, she's been keeping company with the Porta Fortunas of the world. I thought that two-back race at Deauville was extremely impressive, and she's all and she didn't get demolished by Porta Fortuna, who I think is a legit, extremely talented horse. So I think this, if you need a single in this race, and I realize it's a little bit of a smart ass single, but I think I would single Soprano, and in a pretty tough race, and spread other places, and just kind of let the chips fall where they are, because I think this horse is by far and away your most likely winner.
I do want to touch on something that you mentioned though, real quick before we get Caleb in here. Does any like quote unquote big day get worse figures than Pimlico,
Then Pimlico,
than
no,
Preakness?
No.
they're terrible. They're a joke.
I mean, how many times? And like, I swear, like, how many times do we see a horse that just runs absolutely huge at Pimlico and then just just
Never runs
disappears?
back to it ever again. It
It's
happens
yeah,
all the time.
it's wild, especially on the turf. I feel like that turf might be like Churchill quality, where like it always takes a ton of water, it always rains a ton, so like it's like nothing else, right? It's wild. So yeah, that I mean, I think that for all the reasons you kind of said, that I mean that's why I'm kind of fading She Feels Pretty. But
Yeah,
Caleb, what do you
yeah.
think?
Yeah, we are all on the same page here. She Feels Pretty. I don't need the horse at all. I think she's a stone cold miler with one freak performance over a weird turf course. I totally agree. Yeah. I agree with both of you with Soprano. I think that horse has to be used in here. Mark made quite the argument, so I don't really need to get in any detail here because I essentially agree with everything he said about Soprano. I will maybe though add that I think the number 10 Candala is also extremely live in here. I know Josh touched on this horse a bit, said maybe that's kind of his like B in the race, or the second tier Euro perhaps. And that was kind of my take at first, just given some of the races she's come out of, maybe aren't quite as flashy as going up against Porto Fortuna, but she just lost by 2 lengths last time out to Friendly Soul. Friendly Soul just came back to win the Prix de l'Opera last weekend at Longchamp. So, I mean, she's an extremely talented horse because that was a very deep running of the Opera. So, if you go back and kind of compare some common races, and again, not always, a one-to-one thing, but Soprano ran against Friendly Soul, was beaten 3 1/4 lengths. Candala ran against her last out, was beaten 2.5. Yeah, I'm not saying that she's better, it should be favored at a shorter price, but I think that speaks, if nothing else, to the quality of Candala, is that she's a very nice filly. She's relatively lightly raced, has a lot of upside left. Haven't seen her since August, which for a Euro is actually somewhat of a layoff in here. I would have liked to have seen a local jock ship. I would have also liked to have seen any other jock take them out, but unfortunately, you don't always get what you want. So with Flow Up and with the Post, I think that justifies the 7-2 price, or the 9-2 price, perhaps. I also do wonder. Go ahead, Mike.
I was gonna wait for you to get done and then make some sort of comment about you do realize Flo is riding this horse, right? Like you are aware.
Yes, but that being said, my biggest concern with her is that she's bred to go farther than this, and I do wonder if she'll ultimately be better going 1.25 miles to 1.5 miles. But that being said, she does have a win at 1 mile already. I mean, actually 2 wins at 1 mile, so perhaps this is the trip that she wants. But I like her and Soprano as my both A's, kind of a 1A, 1B type deal. Don't need really anybody else's B's, and then I could have about 5 horses written down as C's. I'm not going to go into depth about all of them, but kind of at a high level, I thought horses like Caitlin, Her Greatness was a little bit interesting in here. I mean, has been really a different horse since the barn change and getting switched onto the synthetic and the turf. Won the King's Plate last time out, which is quite the win. I think that Buchu is a horse I've chased for a very long time, and I swore off multiple times. At any other racetrack, this horse would be a complete toss, but for whatever reason, she really likes Keeneland. That's where she's had by far her best races. At what's going to be a big price, I think she'll make my ticket as a C. And then I even looked at Pounce and Greyosh. Josh already talked about Greyosh a little bit, and then Pounce is another one who I don't know what they were thinking, putting her in at 6.5, and clearly she is better going route distance here. It didn't handle Kentucky Downs very well, but had some trouble on that trip too, where she had to check a little bit midway through the race. But her prior races are pretty decent, so she's one that I would give a pass to as a C. So I'll be kind of like an AC structure in this race, and maybe even more than an AC, where I almost excessively press my A's in this race and only have 1 or 2 tickets with a few others.
Hey, Josh, before you move on, going back to your 10 in here, Candide, Candala. One thing to note with this horse is, I know you'd mentioned about the trainer who you'd never heard of. There was a whole situation with the Aga Khan's horses. They used to always be trained by Francis Griffard. And there was a whole funky French trainer where these 2 trainers were joining forces, and the Aga Khan pulled all of his horses. So that's why this trainer. And my gut with that horse is that's a horse who does not end up shipping back to Europe and ends up in a U.S. trainer's barn after this race. I ran Francis Henri Griffard's training stats in the last 5 years. He's only had 3 American starters. They were all in big races like the one of the Belmont Philly Invitational, and in races like these bigger Euro shipper races. They really haven't run a step. Doesn't mean this one won't. Obviously, 3 starters is a very small sample size, and he's a very good trainer. He gets extremely good quality stock. Obviously, he's training for the Aga Khan. But my gut is this one is probably ends up in another barn after this race.
Yeah, Caleb, just to touch on your point. Yeah, I agree with you too. I think this horse. Obviously, you look at the pedigree, and you're like, this horse wants to run all day. But then you kind of look at the results, and you just seem to have run. I mean, obviously ran into a buzzsaw, right, in Friendly Soul. But I mean, you look at the 1 mile races, and you're kind of like, those look pretty good. So I think the cutback might help a little bit here. But also, going a mile, and a quarter, mile and a half, it shouldn't be really out of the realm for this, especially here, right? You don't got any Friendly Souls here in the U.S. So, yeah, I think it's gonna be a really great race to watch. I'm really curious how this kind of this kind of plays out. So,
It's a really good race. It's a really, really cool race. Yeah.
all right, race 9 here. We're gonna be going a mile and 16th on the main track, and yeah, we got a nice optional claimer here, and we got some really really big fields, and once again, man, I see a 9-5 horse I want absolutely nothing to do with. I don't even know how to pronounce this, but Comorbino Amoid. I don't know. Comor Burn Marks Money Amoid or something. I don't know. I don't know what the heck we're gonna call it. But
Is this race the worst morning line in the card, or is it the previous race?
I don't know.
asking.
I have absolutely no interest in that horse. Like I will tell you, Brisnet absolutely loves that horse, right? There's stats out there, right? This is the highest prime power by numerous points, and there's like a certain percentage that
Because they're
those horses
betting the
tend to win.
4-back race at Lone Star.
I will tell
Like-
you, I look at the horses like back races, and that's my exact question that you kind of answered, Mark. Is like who is this horse beat? And like let's look at the horse. Let's look at the 2 races where I can actually recognize horses that, and he ran 3rd by 7 1/4 lengths of Skippy Longstocking, and I don't even know. I forgot who ran 2nd in the Charlestown Classic, but and then you see Hit Show, 2 back in the Governor at Mountaineer, and was a 1 1/4 off of it. So yeah, I don't know. I these are the types of horses I think you want to beat, right? Yeah, I mean, if this horse wins, like, great, and especially if he's going to be a short. But I don't know. He just doesn't do anything for me. Kind of been flat speed figure wise the last couple of races. I'm sure Brisnet and Time for maybe up the figures a little bit for the last 2 races because it's a stakes quality race, but just no interest in the 11 horse in here. And yeah, I'm interested. I mean, like I said, Brisnet loves this horse, so I mean, maybe the public's gonna bet the heck out of it too. But you get 7-2 on Parchment Party, and you get 9-2 on Baton Rouge, and 8-1 on Creative Minister, who's an AE, and then King Kumbale, and then you get double digits on everybody else. So, Caleb, as the noted morning line favorite hater, are you on the 11?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
I think that's. I don't know that he's a terrible favorite, but I think he's a terrible 9-5 in a 12 horse field, coming in with some pretty suspect tracks and speed figures that are dubious at best, blowout wins over nobodies. I mean, if you told me he's 7-2 in a race that's pretty flat, all right, maybe. But 9-5, I think, is kind of ridiculous in this race. So I ended up on. That being said, I would probably struggle to tell you who the favorite will be in this race. I mean, I think the 11 is a contender for favoritism, although I don't think he'll be 9-5. Parchment Party, the second choice. I mean, based on his form, I mean, he's fine, but he hasn't been seen in basically a year. He needs to run faster. I mean, he should. I mean, he earned that figure in November of his 2-year-old season and has had a ton of time to develop and improve. But still, that's not the kind of horse that I think you typically want to take as the favorite. So I don't really know where the money's going to end up going in this race. I'll tell you where I ended up going, which, maybe the money will follow, is another horse that has big figures from suspect tracks, but at least is 8-1. And that's the number 4, King Kumbalai. This is a horse that admittedly has done his best work as well, beating up on some suspect company at Parks and Laurel and a few other places. But he also has some respectable form at Aqueduct and Churchill as well. He looked like he arguably just needed that last race. I think Mark talked about, I believe it was Correa second off the layoff. If not, I mean, the Bresnet stats show, this is a very strong move for Correa anyway. Where, second off the bench in here. He ran fine, breaking from the far outside, trying to pass a couple of horses, made up some ground late. Should be sharper here today. Jose Sticks, this is his trip where he has, 3 wins and has been in the trifectas essentially, 6 out of 8 times. So I do like King Kumbalai in here. The other one I used kind of reluctantly, but this is a race I had a hard time getting a handle on, is the number 6, Macman. I had a hard time getting a good read on the pace in here. I mean, I suppose a horse like Seeking Unity might go to the lead. I mean, the 11 certainly also has speed if he decides to use it. But again, it's one of those races without a ton of clear-cut need the lead or leader types. So I was kind of looking at the 6 who, could get the lead perhaps if he really wanted it, but is also probably a little bit better with a target. And I thought he ran pretty well last time as well. Matt Shire, does pretty well with not a ton of horses. And I thought that at a monstrous price last time, I mean, he nearly, stole the race. If you like the Baton Rouge horse in here, the number 10, I mean, this is another horse that has a lot of speed. This horse kind of took it to him, just sat a length off, was able to pass Baton Rouge and actually beat him by a length and a quarter, and then just kind of got nailed late by another runner who was making a big late charge, who I think is actually going to be quite a nice horse. With that being said, I mean, not a horse I feel super strongly about, but seems like one who is relatively lightly raced. I mean, gets this trip and has tactical speed to kind of work out his own trip. A mile and 16th at Keeneland on the dirt, I'm always trying to avoid the far outside because that first turn comes up so fast. And I'm also trying to avoid, hopelessly one-run closers because you do run the short stretch to the first finish line. So, more from a racing flow dynamics and post-position draw, I ended up on the 4 and 6 in here.
Yeah, just kind of chime in. I was pretty light here. I did land on the 10, Baton Rouge. Kind of what you had kind of mentioned, Caleb. I kind of had a hard time trying to figure out where the speed was going to come from. Like the 9, Bartulia. Hey, if this was still with Brad Cox, you cross the line through that, right? Like this is your leader. And then you kind of look at that last race, and you're like, this one's probably was laid off for a while for a reason, and is probably not the same horse he was in 2023. So I kind of just tossed that one out. I am a little concerned about the fact that the far outside post, but I don't know. I thought the 10 might just have enough speed to be able to clear. I mean, the 8 River in Egypt has got some speed, but I mean, that was a 25 and 350 and 2 when he got the lead and wasn't able to hang on there. So I think the 10's got a little bit more speed than that. And the 6 Macman just kind of ran around the track in second, last time out. I think he probably wants more of a tracking trip. And honestly, maybe he does get it here. Maybe he's one I got to take another look at. Maybe he's able to just kind of track. But yeah, I really like. I like that horse. I looked at the 2 Seeking Unity a bit as well, but I don't know. This doesn't smell right. Like, why is Rudy shipping this horse to Keeneland? I mean, how often does Rudy actually even run horses in Kentucky? It's kind of kind of weird thing. Unless he's trying to pull a Linda, and he's trying to run because now they got the Linda rule where you got to run a couple horses in order to start claiming. I don't know. Maybe he's trying to claim some horses for his barn. I don't know. But he was one I kind of took a look at. Maybe make some tickets, but I mean, the 5 Parchment Party. I mean, you see a Bill Mott horse that's got 2 starts and 2 wins, and hey, like I know he's been laid off for quite a bit, but the horse has been working pretty regularly since August and working pretty good. So I'm not as concerned. There must have obviously been a problem, because I could see after that November race, right? They're like, all right, that's enough for the year. We're going to bring this horse back in January, and it looks like they were working the horse in December and January, and then obviously clearly something went wrong, and they had to lay the horse up for a little bit. But horse has definitely got talent. I expect to move forward off that 2-year-old figure. we'll see what price we get on this horse, but I mean, a lightly raced Bill Mott horse that's 2 for 2. Um, I don't know. I think that this horse is going to be live in here, but I think everyone else is as well, and it might just be way too short to get any kind of value. But hey, if I got to take 2 short prices to get through this race, I will. So I didn't land on the favorite, but I basically landed on the second and third choice here, and in the 5, and and the 10 Baton Rouge. Mark, where did you land?
You guys have already talked about the 3 horses that on top, which were the 4, the 5, and the 10. The only other horse that I want to talk about that you guys have not mentioned, and obviously you guys mentioned all the same reasons. This is a really tough race, absolute scramble. This is one I think I have 7 horses written down, and I don't know if I have enough coverage. Very, very, very tough race because pace dynamics, who ends up on the lead, the kind of trips horses sit, how wide floated some of these horses that are out of the parking lot who have pace are going to be. Like all those things come into play. The only horse we haven't mentioned is the 12 Surface to Air, who I thought was a bit of an interesting player in here. This is a horse that was in really good form in last spring. Has a win across the surface, going a mile and a 16th, and then had 2 wins at Aqueduct. They took a shot in the Monmouth Cup. Obviously, way too depot company. Horse was on the horse ran okay and just kind of faded late, and then they took a turf shot after that, which I don't think is what this horse wants to be doing. The turf tries have been pretty poor. So finally getting back to an appropriate level, you're getting back to an appropriate distance and an appropriate surface, and a horse that probably gets ignored. The classic dirtied up form type of horse. And so I thought Surface to Air here probably sits the right trip, can be forwardly placed, has some tactical speed, can sit just off some of the other speed types in here. So I thought this was an interesting horse, and the only one that I found interesting that you guys hadn't mentioned as of yet.
I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on a horse that I looked at for a very long time, at least in Josh time, right? So it's probably like 7 or 8 seconds. But like I was like, I think I'm gonna use this horse, and I still might. Did you guys give any credence to the one horse, Bourbon Resolve, in this spot?
No.
No.
I mean, I get that the race wasn't that fast, but he broke his maiden going this exact trip early or last year in April. So he's 1 for 1 here. Bourbon Lane Stable. Obviously, they go ahead and they put their horses on bottles of Pinhook. So obviously, shout out to Pinhook. But I don't know. I maybe I'm just like, hey, like horses got to win at Keeneland. I just don't really, have a real good, a good idea of like what the pace is going to kind of be here. His horse is drawn inside, has shown some tactical speed in his wins. So he was one I kind of looked at, but I was curious if you guys had looked at him at all. But he does look a little slow, even though he's 1 for 1 at Keeneland. So
I mean, he's not impossible, but
No, he's not.
He's not going to make my tickets, I don't think.
Yeah, exactly the same for me. He's not impossible. He's just not going to make my tickets. I don't really see how he sits the right kind of trip. If you're, loving the horse for course, or I don't know. This feels like Caleb playing a night horse, right? Josh playing the Bourbon horse, right? That's just kind of what it feels like.
Yeah, and of the 20 to ones, I actually do like Mark's 12. It would be maybe my third or fourth, pick in here. Like you said, if you think he maybe just needs Lasix or was in over his head or turret, whatever, perfect dirty form. Yeah, the post sucks, but that's baked into the price. So I do like the 12. The one, he would need to run a race that I don't think I've seen from him yet. And while he could do that, I'm not sure that I necessarily expected here.
You could actually circle the 2 previous works before that as well, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, but the 2 previous works before that were before that Monmouth Cup, and we saw how that turned out. So, but it's good. Honestly, though, like when you see bad efforts like that, and you see the horse come out of those efforts and then just still
Working
fire
well.
a bullet, I think you're kind of just like, all right, horse is way over his head, whatever. That's fine. You kind of cross the line through it. Yeah, and Caleb brought up a good point about the Lasix. I didn't even look at that, so that's an interesting angle there. And if this 13 draws in, did you guys look at him at all, Creative Minister?
He will take money, I'll tell you that much.
I want no part of him. He is extremely camera shy.
Horse I would absolutely love to own. Right? Horse that collects a lot of checks.
He does that.
And pretty decent races too. I mean, he was running some nice races, but yeah. No, I was just curious.
And-
I didn't think much of him in this race, but all right, race 10. We got a salty allowance race going a mile on the turf here. And for 2-year-olds, which have never won 2 races, a little N2L action here. And we got a oversubscribed field once again. We got 12 in the main field. We got a bunch of AEs. And your morning line favorite is going to be the 5 Blue Coast at 4-1, Poster at 5-1, Currahee at 9-2, and then, like you said, just like all these other races, gets kind of flat after the kind of the top 4. You get 8-1 double digits on basically everybody else. Yeah, I landed on 3 horses in this spot. I mean, I think that the top 2 picks I'm gonna have in here, the 1 Poster, you know, won a pretty nice maiden race over at Ellis Park, went wire to wire in that, and I mean set honest fractions, right? So this horse has got speed. I mean, went 22 and 447, right? So it definitely has been, it has that speed, has that miler speed. So, kind of like Owen Hardy sticking with Raphael here, coming back here, rail draw, he's got some speed. I always think speed's always dangerous on the turf. I think it's overlooked. But I mean, have you guys not seen me bet a speed horse? I don't know. But another speed horse, the 7 Classic example, albeit is a horse that showed speed on the dirt, and we've often said that dirt speed does not equate to turf speed. And so I wouldn't be surprised, because I look at that. I look at those fractions. I see 25 and 2, 50 and 1 going a mile on the dirt. Like, yeah, this horse was on the lead, but I don't necessarily think that he was like rushed out the gate, like showed like a really big turn of foot right away. And I don't know, the running line's kind of funny. I don't know if I've ever seen a running line, uh, I mean, just that symmetrical, where literally is just for 1, 1, 1, 1, all by half a length the entire way around. I think it's kind of wild, because usually when you get like a little bit of a bias or something else is going on, like usually like at least at the end you see the horses kind of separate a little bit. So just kind of a weird thing, but Improbable has actually been throwing 15% turf winners, albeit not first time. And then Tis Wonderful on the bottom is okay as at 11%. So interesting that Brad Cox is putting this one right onto turf. Obviously, he ran this one at Indiana Grand, where you can never run on the turf. So, and once again, we talked about Flavian Pratt. You get Flavian Pratt aboard. I will say that just because of those 2 connections, you are not getting 10-1. I mean, just that alone, like you're not going to get 10-1. But
No,
I,
this is one of those other really terrible morning lines. You'll be lucky to get 5-1 on that horse.
and then the other horse I have written down as a B is the 8 Enter the Dragon, and you know, has not run well on the turf in his 2 starts, but that was going 5 furlongs, and then they put him on the poly, going a mile at Gulfstream. Ends up running pretty well. Has got tactical speed. Was on the front end and ends up winning. They go back to the dirt in a listed stakes, probably a little in over its head here, but coming back here, Jose D'Angelo, really good trainer, come from Gulfstream Park. He ships some good ones to Kentucky every once in a while, and he gets Irad aboard. Irad and him are 57% over the last 2 months and 7 starts. So yeah, I kind of like those 3 horses here. I got a fade on the 5 Blue Coast. I'm just, I see that race at Kentucky Downs. I think maybe that took a little bit out of him, and maybe needs a race to kind of get back square. So I got the 1 Poster. I got the, if my scroll button works, the 7 Classic Example, and I got the 8 Enter the Dragon. Caleb, where did you land?
Yeah, we're somewhat similar, I would say, in this race. I do like the 1 Poster, who I think had a nice race for a barn that doesn't win a ton first time out, or was able to go out there, do all the heavy lifting, draw off at the end actually, and that was a bit of a green effort. Comment says shot from the tire tracks, was a little bit immature there, so has a right to improve here. I do think he'll be up against it a bit from the pace presence and the pace projector in this race. It does seem like it should be a quick pace, but with that being said, I still kind of gravitated towards horses who I think will be forward, simply because I kind of had a hard time landing on any of the real deep closers. Another horse I looked at who I really dislike the morning line on, because I'm expecting and hoping to get better, but that would be the number 12 Currahee. And the only reason I'm really gravitating toward this horse is that I think that he is going to be your leader. This is a horse coming out of 5.5 furlong races. You get a pretty tough post to try to not go to the front from, and you get Louis Saez up. I think this horse realistically has kind of one way to go. But if you look at the pedigree, War of Will out of a Blaine Dam, I think there's a lot to like in there. The horse should be able to stretch out. That shouldn't be much of an issue. The horse that beat him last time out was Governor Sam. Governor Sam looks like he might be a half decent turf sprinter. He came back to win the Indian Summer Stakes just a week ago at 2-1 or something like that. So I think that was a strong race for Colonial for sure, which I think might turn some people off as seeing it's not the bigger ticketed racetracks. So I like Currahee in here. I do like Poster. And then essentially I struggled to pick between the 3, the 4, and the 6, because I do think if it's not the 1 or 12, then it's probably a closer. But I kind of went back and forth between those 3. And Mark can probably talk about this a little bit more, but it's one of those races where Timeform did not think very highly of the Juvenile Mile in the Kentucky Downs. Brisnet thought it was fine. So that's really going to influence what you think of those horses, is kind of what you make of that speed figure. So I struggle with the 3, 4, and 6. I could use one of them. I could use all of them in some form or fashion, but I'm curious to kind of, Mark, who I also use his Timeform, kind of what his take was on that race.
Yeah, I had a really. I think sometimes Kentucky Downs form is. I like to bet horses coming out of Kentucky Downs to a place like Keeneland, because they oftentimes do very well. But I think oftentimes you have to sort of be a little suspect of the speed figures that come out of Kentucky Downs, because oftentimes certain horses just handle it, certain horses don't, and oftentimes the speed figures don't really translate. A horse will run a 90 at Kentucky Downs, and the next race out they'll go run 100. Like you'll see these big jumps where the Kentucky Downs figure just is a little bit suspect. I think as I sort of looked at the race, you guys have sort of mentioned the horses I was most interested in, the 1, the 7, and the 12. I did use the 6, the Brigade. I thought that, this is just kind of the horse that is getting, at least on paper, a little bit of class relief here, dropping out of the black type. And I really like the move over to Jorge Ortiz, taking the mount here. Of the closers, this is the one I want, albeit I don't necessarily know how far back you want to be on this Kentucky turf. But I don't think this is the, classic come from the clouds closer type. I think this is the kind of horse that's going to sit 3 or 4 lengths back and be still at least involved. And I think those types of moves, we saw one of them today with the first time on the U.S. shipper, where you can sit those kind of trips and still be okay. So you basically exactly what Nick Feldman is saying. You just kind of draw a line through some of these Kentucky Downs races, because the figures and the performances don't always always translate. And I thought the Brigade, the 6 horse here, was somewhat interesting. But again, I'm 4 deep in here, so I don't have a really sharp opinion. Again, really tough sequence, and this is a really tough race.
I like I said, I thought the 3, 4, and 6 are pretty similar, but I'm just curious. If you do think the 6 is the one you want, why not the 4?
Or why not the 3, right?
Or the
no,
3.
Or to both those, yeah. I don't really have a good reason, right? Like, I mean, I guess when you're getting right down to it, yeah, you could use the 3 and the 4 just as much as well. It was more, honestly, it was probably for me more a jockey situation of, Hernandez has been absolutely ice cold. I don't necessarily know if the 3 is a need the lead type, he did pass others last time out in that Kentucky Downs race, but a horse that wants to be forwardly placed, I don't know. I don't really have a really good reason for disliking the 3 or the 4. I think again this is just a really tough race, where there was nobody that jumped off the page that I really loved, and I felt like I had to be really spready. 3 or 4 wouldn't shock me. I actually have the most both marked down as probably B/C types for me.
All right. Anything else on this card you guys wanted to talk about?
I haven't looked at anything else. I mean, I will say this is
I haven't either.
a brutal pick 6.
It's brutal.
Unless this carries over tomorrow, I don't know that I'll be approaching it from a pick 6 standpoint. It's going to be hard enough as a pick 5, I think.
Yeah, I wonder.
Dude, even as a pick 5, it's hard. Like, this is just one of those. My approach to these, and especially this time of year at Keeneland, I much prefer their turf racing over their dirt racing. So for me, I would probably target the turf pick 3, which we covered those 3 races, and I think you get some value plays in there. I would wait for scratches, see what comes out, and then see what I'm sort of left with, and how do I need to structure in a way to play that. I'm somewhat light until Breeders' Cup betting wise, but I think that turf pick 3 is it didn't pay well today because it was really super easy, but it pays. The one that Andrew gave out on your show, that paid phenomenally well given the sequence. It wasn't crazy hard, but it paid very well.
Yeah, I just still think that that's due to the low takeout and the high base. You just get, if you're not going to get like a really, really big pool, like we've seen that, Mark, you and I play Cinnaboya Downs all the time.
Yeah.
That $1 pick 4 with a low takeout, like you get, sometimes we look at it and we're like, all right, like Chalk is going to win this one, Chalk's going to win this one. Probably one or two of the top 3 choices look like the best in that race, and then I don't know, maybe the second choice in the last race, right? And it comes in, it pays $300, right? And you're like, I played a $16 ticket, like so. I mean, obviously, usually I leverage them up a little bit, but still, $16 base ticket, and you put $50 into it, and you make a couple $100. Nothing wrong with that. So, I will say, guys, I had a nice little hit last week, and I was not proud of it. I was not proud of it. Caleb, I don't know if you saw my tickets I posted. I went to the OTB last week, and the big turf race at Keeneland.
I haven't seen it now.
What do you think I did? What is just the absolute just rattiest thing that you could ever do in a turf race? Usually in New York, but hey, sometimes at Keeneland. I boxed all the Chad Brown horses in a trifecta.
Oh, that is
dude. The best part is I boxed all of them, all 4 of them, and then I had $6 left, and I'm like, well, I might as well box them again and just toss White Beam out. So I hit the trifecta. Had a win bet on Gina Romantica, which actually I thought I mean I bet it idiotically, right? I bet it idiotically because I love Gina Romantica, and if I would have just keyed her on top, like I probably would have had it 2 or 3 more times, right? But made $500. I tipped the teller a little bit, and then I tipped my waitress a little bit more, and I got out of there. Although I'm curious because I've never asked this, and I want to get to Nick Feldman's comment before we get off. But how much do you tip a teller?
Like,
all right, we'll take my example. Yeah, we'll take my example, right? And I'll tell you the exact numbers, right? I went to the OTB with $200, right? I left with $500, cashed it all out at the end. How much are you tipping?
A buck or two, but it's gonna be rounding error. It's gonna be like, oh,
I literally got
$523. I'll give him $2 or $3.
I got $517 back. It was specific, right? Just
That would have given $2. Then you walk out with 515.
all right, Caleb.
Well, I can't say a bigger number. I make Mark look like an asshole. So,
But what would you do?
I mean, I would probably throw like, if I'm tipping like at a window every time I make a bet, then I would tip less. But if I'm only tipping once, like at the end, and I've made bets and shit, I'd probably leave like $10 or something.
Okay, I tipped 5. I don't remember if I tipped 5 or 7. Like I tipped basically what I had left over, right? Like $5 or $7. So, okay. I was just like, I don't even know. I mean, this is not like the situation which I've told this story where the teller was aggressively like, "What? You're not going to tip me?" Like which happened at
No.
Saratoga. And of course
No,
at that point,
I
I'm
mean,
like, whatever.
yeah.
But
If I go up to make a bet, I'll give them $1 usually, just as a tip. If I have cash anyway, which I rarely do anymore. But like, yeah, if it's something like that, I'm only tipping once at the end. I would do a little bit more probably.
yeah,
But still,
the only place that's different for me, and it's because drink tickets are involved, is at Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Las Vegas, I'm tipping every time I'm going up there, and I'm
Yep.
telling you, most horse players aren't, and they're giving you drink tickets. So
Yeah, you're telling me.
That's a very different conversation that you're paying for drinks that way. It's funny. I think the last time that I ever tipped the last time I've actually went to a live teller to place a wager, was it's been probably 5 or 6 years. And it was probably me getting like $2 saver tickets to say I was there on some race like that. That's I very, very, very rarely actually play live money.
yeah, I see Nick Feldman asking if we're excited for Torpedo Anna versus Idiomatic.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I was looking overseas today when I was trying to check out some futures in the Breeders' Cup, and I think I saw her like routinely listed at odds on. I think I saw her at like minus 125.
Torpedo Anna?
Who?
Yeah, Torpedo Anna.
Oof.
Which I think is extremely short, too short.
Ooh, that's way too short.
Yeah, but if as a fan, if she's 8-5 and Idiomatic's 2-1, then I'm excited to watch it and not bet it. If she's going to be 4-5 and Idiomatic's going to be 3-1 or 5-2, I'm excited as a fan and I'm excited to bet it. So we'll see.
Yeah, that is it's hard too because obviously I'm excited to sit there and watch the race because it's really cool. And I think you see this in the filly division much more than you do with the males, where you get these big like rubber matches of like who's the best and like this real two very quality horses. Aomatic's a very known quantity. Obviously, Torpedo Anna is definitely a star at this point in the in the year, but she's definitely still has some ceiling left to go. We don't know how good she really is. And it's always fun to see those kind of races. It'd be interesting to see who else shows up in that race. And what they do from a pace complexion standpoint. I mean, if this would be a cutback for Torpedo, right? So, I almost wonder, is Torpedo still eligible for the Classic? Like,
Well, it wouldn't be a cutback, right? Because she just what's the Cotillion's mile and eighth, right?
oh, that's right. I'm sorry. She did run the Cotillion. I forgot. I was thinking Travers. That was her last race, not the Cotillion. I forgot about that.
And I mean, admittedly, if she didn't run the Cotillion and the last race I saw of hers was the Travers, then yeah, I probably wouldn't try to beat her even at 4-5. But I think I haven't seen the figures that came back from the Cotillion, but it wasn't a visually dominant race by any stretch.
No.
Yeah, and I don't know. We haven't talked, so we'll do a little production meeting. Like I don't know. We'll have to figure out what we're doing for Breeders' Cup. Like I think maybe there's a little bit of value in maybe trying to pump stuff out on Tuesday before we start traveling and stuff. So maybe we'll get some early stuff up, and maybe Wednesday travel is gonna be kind of weird. I think both Mark and I are getting in kind of late.
Kind of
And
late.
then Thursday, I think Thursday is basically our only like full free day. So we might actually be going out somewhere, but I don't know. Maybe we'll do shorts. We'll do stuff. We'll figure stuff out. But I think definitely that Tuesday, we get early draws and stuff. We'll be able to get some stuff out there. But should be fun. I mean, obviously, if anybody is out that way, obviously shoot us a message. We'll definitely be happy to talk to anybody. Nick Feldman asking if Mark is playing BCBC. Caleb, maybe he doesn't know the story. Maybe he doesn't know your story, Caleb.
Oh, my story?
I don't know
It's
if we
been a
can
while
talk
since
about-
we've seen Nick.
Yeah.
Yes.
Caleb's probably not going to admit to his story. Yeah, Nick, I did buy in. So I will be playing BCBC. And Caleb and I are going to be sitting at the same table so we can talk shit the whole time. It'll be great fun.
Dude, me and Papa Knight are gonna lose so much money on speed. It's gonna be unreal. It's gonna be unreal. And what's gonna be so funny is like we're like the thing is that when me and him get together, we just hype each other up on these speed horses and just insult Caleb because oh Nick, Caleb beat you because you bet the wrong number. Oh no, Caleb. You took Nick down with your shenanigans.
Yeah.
Oh, poor Nick.
Well,
It's
yes.
unlucky. But yeah, dude, I don't know, dude. Dude, it's gonna be crazy because like either like you guys like you guys are both good contest players. Obviously you guys have both done well in various contests. Caleb's even done well when playing his actual opinions. Um, but yeah, I have a feeling like you guys, you're gonna be in there. But man, there's a shot that me and Papa and I have the biggest score of the weekend because we're just gonna be firing at cheap speed the entire time. And I don't know, watch out, it's gonna be something else.
I'm
So-
waiting
Better be
for
watching
Papa
the
Knight to be
times.
playing. I'm gonna be waiting for Papa Knight to be playing Indiana Grand for the grandstands at the Breeders' Cup.
We might just be playing Aqueduct the whole time. Who knows?
Yeah, you probably will be.
Yeah. But I'm planning on actually possibly playing in all cash, but I got to figure out what the situation is going to be like for I assume we'll have easy access to machines and stuff, but I don't know.
Yeah,
We'll
you'll have
see.
easy
It should be
access,
fun.
but you also got to take a look at, if you're somebody who likes the tournament structure, Horse Players has some really big money tournaments that cover both Friday, Saturday, and the 2-day. And I've played those. They're like COVID years when we couldn't travel, and I did very well in them. Just you don't have to get crazy. Just use some solid opinions. You get one or two prices home, and suddenly you can get a six-figure score playing a tournament that isn't that hard. Those are really good, and they also have some lower entry fee ones. I was playing in the ones that were like $500 or something dollar
they
entry,
usually
but they
have-
have them like a $20 entry one that has like a $10,000 first prize. They're really good
Well,
tournaments.
what I like is usually for BC they do middle priced ones too that usually
Yeah.
get filled up. Because normally the problem is, and Caleb, I know Caleb and I have complained about this, is like they'll put a $50 tournament out there, or $59 or like a $75 tournament out there, and nobody plays it. Everyone plays the $12 one, or they play like the $150 or $190 one, right?
Yeah.
And in the middle one, like nobody plays. But they usually they get some entries for the middle ones, and I don't know. Maybe you're gonna see Josh Rodriguez up there at the top, and then like in parentheses you're gonna see Terry Knight. I mean you don't know. You don't know where we're gonna pop up. So but no, it's gonna be fun. I've never been to California, let alone to Del Mar.
Me
So
neither, actually.
I'm really excited to go. I mean, that's why this year, dude, I was like, all right, Caleb, like, let's book this thing now. Really excited to go. It's gonna be a lot of fun. We'll get some kind of content out there for you guys, and we'll definitely get some early stuff out there. But yeah, that's gonna do it for us. Obviously, check us out at onthewronglead.com, at wrong_lead on Twitter. I am at Cherry Drank. Mark is at Two Turns. Caleb's at Caleb WVU. No drinking champagne this week, unfortunately. There was just we couldn't get the schedule to work, and there was some personal stuff Andrew had to take care of. Everything is fine and everything is good now. But if you guys message Andrew, tell him wish him well. And we'll probably see him next week. But we should get You've Got to Be Shot Tinning Me up tomorrow night, so we'll get some shot tin action. And hey, maybe we'll go. I think we might go 3 for 3. I think. Yeah, I think we hit the one 2 weeks ago. We hit the one last week. Let's see if we can make it 3 for 3. But see you guys later, and let's have a good weekend.